Hello students, this is the second segment of the chapter French Revolution that we studied in the previous lecture. In that lecture we covered the beginning of the revolution, how were the conditions at that time, what were the problems prevailing in the society, how the economy was dealing with crisis, and how the taxes were gaining on the common people. Now, continuing with the same background, all these changes, all these conditions that were happening in the society were giving a lot of impact in the thinking of the people. And these changes, these thinking was continuously building up, and the burning topic of the society at that time became, why are we the one to suffer when we pay most of the taxes? So the heading that reads is, the growing middle class envisages an end to privileges. The anger that was building up in the population was nothing new. Even in earlier period also, the people had risen in protest against the burden of taxes and against the injustice that's been happening with them in the past. But somewhere down the line, it was a weak opposition, a weak protest, and everybody did not participate in it with a full effort. Because of these loopholes, because of these shortcomings, these protests did not succeed. But yes, they did build a background for the revolt that was to occur in future. The middle class society, which basically comprised of workers, peasants, merchants, businessmen, lawyers, that is those people who had to work to earn their livelihood, and initially they were not earning that much which could back them up for any major revolt, and a very small section of the middle class was prosperous and had the monetary benefits. Now, when in these times, in the 18th century, a new class of traders, merchants, lawyers, administrative officers emerged. These people, they had earned their wealth through different mediums, could be overseas trade or manufacturing different materials which help them get profit and earn money and become a part of the rich society. These people started the thought that whatever is happening with the third estate people was unjust. And to add to this, the most important factor was the education that they had gained, the experience that they've had in their life, and on the basis of that experience and education, they could now analyze that the division, the social unjust division prevailing in the society was unfair to them, and they could not follow this social division anymore. So the discontent in the society was now building up. Another very important thing that happened in the same time and encouraged these ideas were the writings or the literature of philosophers in the era like John Locke, Jean-Jacques Rousseau, Montesquieu. These writers, they gave their ideas of absolute power in the hands of the society, and that the people should act as their own representatives, and the government system should run in a proper regulated manner. It should have legislative, executive and judiciary, so that the administrative work could not be called in the hands of the monarch only. These ideas, these thoughts of these philosophers were discussed in coffee houses, the places where people would sit down and chat and read out the thoughts, the books that they've been studying. These kind of activities in the society made people think that whatever is happening and has been happening is wrong, and as a citizen of the nation they also hold equal rights in their hands. The monarch, the ruler, the king should not treat them as they are nothing, and they should have some power in their own hands. We can take the same example when we'll study the nationalism in India. At that time also, coffee houses, tea shops, these places acted as a place for exchange of ideas where people would sit and chat and discuss of the thoughts that they've been thinking and the thoughts that the rest of the society was pondering on, which helped in exchange of ideas. To quote some of the famous writings, so overall the fire was building up, sparks in the people was adding on, and the explosion was ready to blast. All it required was a little nudge. So there came a nudge in the form of increase in taxes by the first and second estate. So let's start with the next heading, the outbreak of the revolution. Like we studied in the previous lecture, that the economic condition of France was getting poorer day by day because of continuous engagement in wars and the expenses made by the first and second estate. The treasury was emptying at a very fast rate. Now, to overcome this, the money had to be acquired, and from where the money will come? Yes, from the pockets of the people of third estate. So they had to now increase the taxes and continue with the expenses, the luxuries that they had been enjoying. So to impose the taxes, the thought came, but it was not in the hands of the king only to impose the taxes. For this process, a state's General Assembly was there, and in this assembly, which was a political body, the representatives of the three estates were involved. In the meeting, they had to pass the proposal for imposing new taxes, but it wasn't that easy as it sounds. So, to impose new taxes, on 5th May 1789, the meeting of Estates General was called. After the decision, King Louis and the Estates General assembled in a big hall in Versailles with the of representatives of the three estates. Now, what is interesting here to know is that in these estates general meeting, there was a particular sitting arrangement which also signified the importance of the estates. There was a single long table in between of the hall, and on the two sides of the table sat the first and the second state representatives. They were 300 in number each estate, and the representatives of the third estate, which majorly comprised of the prosperous people of the third estate who were educated, who were comparatively wealthier, they were made to stand around the hall and were not given chairs to sit. They were 600 in number. The system of voting in the States General Meeting was also a bias type in which each house, each estate had a single vote, and the system has been running since the old regime. What was crucial here is that the first and the second estate did not have to pay the taxes, whereas the third estate was the one to bear the burden. Now, in this situation where each estate held one vote in their hands, the majority could never be in favor of the third estate, because the first and the second estate would never favor the third estate, because the taxes they will get from the third estate will benefit or add into their own luxuries. So, the result of this voting was never a just result or a just decision. And like always, the king was in favor of the same system of voting and wanted to conduct it in the same manner. But what differed was the approval of the third estate. At this time, the third estate denied this system of voting. They wanted that rather than getting one vote for each state, the system should be that every representative should hold one vote in their hand. As there were 300 members of the first estate, 300 members of the second estate, and 600 members of the third estate, the voting results would be a fairer one if every representative held a vote in his hand. But the monarch denied. He did not allow this system of voting and was adamant on the old regime system of voting. So, the people of the third estate rejected the decision of the king and walked out of the estate assembly's meeting. This action of the people of the third estate was the beginning of the change that was to occur in the nation. In the next lecture, we'll see what the people of the third estate did after walking out from the assembly hall and what changes it brought in the nation of France.